Hey,
What?
everybody, this is Dr. Kevin McGovern, and we are at the 111th issue, show, propaganda thing,
Good
whatever,
Lordy.
podcast for the Prove It Live podcast. Great show for you today. Title of this show is How to Choose a Baseball Development Program. And I'm sure we can put the word development in all kinds of quotations or pronunciation or whatever delineation, because there are a million different views of what the word development means, especially when we're talking about baseball players. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my very patriotically dressed podcast co-host, Mr. Mike Ferry. Michael?
Thanks, Kevin. And yeah, I'm actually I can semi-proudly wear this hoodie today.
Yeah, you guys won today.
It's insane. And they beat the Bills, which is
The Bills.
kind of funny. I mean, it just shows to show the NFL. It's, the whole idea of like any given Sunday, it sounds so cheesy, but it's true. It's really true. I mean, I don't have many good things to say about my football team. I'm a fan, so I'll always love them, but not too many good things to say, but they pulled it out today against a really good team. So interesting to see what they say on the radio tomorrow, because I've heard everything from getting rid of Mac Jones and trading him, which I'm not even against, to fired Bill Belichick, which is silly. I'm not even going to do it justice by trying to defend on why that's silly. But anyway, so wearing this rather proudly today. But interesting intro, Kev, you said about the quotations around development. So as soon as you said it, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Right. I mean, that seems to be do you do player development? What's player development? We develop players.
Yes.
We've done numerous shows on what development is. I don't, think anyone is doing it at all 100% correctly, just for the fact of one thing. How we know we're not developing players? They're injured at more of a rate than the National Football League. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a fact that we have proven in previous shows. There are websites, especially gambling websites, that keep track of injuries. And baseball players are injured at more of a rate than players in the National Football League, especially pitchers. We talk about any kind of development. If there's not a health and wellness component to that development, it's poop.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And look, I'm sure there's people out there that are given a big effort, right? And so, I know, we're one of them. We're always been big cognizant of, trying to teach healthy throwing, et cetera. And, you do need a certain amount of bandwidth, resources to be able to do that properly, which, you and I, Kev, will be doing, of course, coming up here in the winter. But it's just watching the playoffs this year, the MLB playoffs, which have been pretty entertaining. Some blowouts, but there's been some good games. And I mean, every pitcher that comes in, every starter, every reliever, they talk about how they had Tommy John surgery, whether it be 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And, you see Bryce Harper gets on base now. He's got this big thing he puts on his arm because he also had Tommy John surgery. Part of the reason why he's become a first baseman.
Bryce Harper's a pitcher, right?
Exactly. He's not. Yeah, he's not. He's not. And that's something you never saw before, right? I mean, we talk about, you could argue, we didn't see these injuries. Well, I remember injuries. Yeah. Well, you didn't see them like you are today.
I don't care what anyone says. I don't care. No one had arms like the players and the outfielders that when we grew up with, from Jesse Barfield, Dave Winfield, Dave Parker, Bo Jackson,
Dwight Evans.
Okay. These guys had cannons for arms, right? And these guys cannot even reach home plate, not even close from their normal outfield position. I don't see anyone, even after playing, getting Tommy John surgery on their arm. So the product is worse. I don't care what anyone says. They're going to argue the baseball product is worse. We have a player, and let's look at across the board, right? Pitchers throw less innings, right? Have less. Okay, so let's just say we'll put velocity. We're going to put that as an unknown X, because we know the radar guns are souped up. The measurements coming right from the hand. So, if we put Goose Gossage and Aroldis Chapman, did they throw the same? We don't know. We don't know because of how it was measured. Okay. but Goose Gossage, would come in and throw 3 innings, right? I don't know who the guy was, but they took out after 5 innings. Like, these guys have no ability to pitch longer. I mean, 6 innings is like a complete game. You look at
Right.
Jim Palmer, 30 complete games in one season. You're never, ever, ever going to see that unless something drastically changed. So is that development? What's the product? Now we look at a hitter. How many guys hit over 300 this year? 5? Is that development?
Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah.
I mean, whatever's happening. So,
well, the home run
so
numbers
the
aren't better
hitting's going
either.
down, right? The pitching should be going up, right? Or if the hitting's going up, the pitching should be going down. They both suck.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you what the opposition would say was, well, we don't measure on batting average anymore. We don't measure by this, by that. But okay, fine.
Someone's got to get a hit.
Well, it doesn't matter because the home runs aren't going up either. The home runs aren't better. RBIs aren't better. The big numbers runs scored now. Like, it's just another way of looking at RBIs. Who cares who it was that went in? We just know what that was. They were batted in. It's just it's an overthinking, right? And someone made a comment the other day about, I forget who. Oh, it was about. I think it was actually a Boston sports writer that said something about Uvalde. And he said, what you saw in his last start there, what you saw at Uvalde is what the nerds and the stats aren't going to tell you. What the math isn't going to tell you is his grit, his ability to step up in a big game, his ability to bring it to another level, his ability
Morris
to focus.
pitching 10 innings in a playoff game, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's you see a lot of that in the playoffs. You see a lot of people stepping up.
Mike, we've seen it in 04 coming out of the bullpen after 2 days rest, right?
Yep, and look, because a big part of it is the numbers. Number one, it's the pitch count. They don't want them throwing X amount of pitches and et cetera. But it's also, well, third time through the lineup. And look, some of them they do have numbers where I think it was Wheeler they were talking about, where typically this year, third time through the lineup, he would shut down. He had great numbers 2 times through the lineup. Third time, that's when he'd start letting up runs. So sure, there's a part of that, but the bigger reason is because the arms, and by the way, arms aren't conditioned to throw that much anymore, and they're just not, but guys are cruising, and all of a sudden, why do you think all of a sudden the playoffs, like, Lavello, all these managers, all of a sudden they're starting to let these guys go into the 7th, 8th inning. Why would you not do that all year, all of a sudden in the playoffs? And it's because it's working. It's working. You don't want to mess with it. You want to let them roll. And that's, there's no feel anymore for the game. Everything's like, it's like you look at a chart.
It's an equation.
It's an equation.
That equation's working.
Better way to put it. It's an equation. That's exactly it. And you're right. And a lot of them aren't working. I'm sure there's some truth at a base level, right? Generally speaking, that's where it comes from. But for the love of God, like, we got to use our heads. And the other thing too that we saw, of course, before we get into our development program here is Adolis Garcia and my God, who was it that hit him? Relief pitcher for Houston. Got ejected.
Right?
Yeah, got ejected. Yeah. From the game. So for those that didn't watch, Garcia hit a home run that put them ahead, to put the Rangers ahead. Super high.
He did a Jose Bautista squared pimping, right? Yep.
Yes, he did. Yes,
Joey
he did.
Bats
sat and watched it. And how I knew, because they didn't show the hitter from the right. Of course, they show the flight of the ball. And after it lands in the stands, then they go back to the runner, and he's not even at first base yet. And I'm like, oh my God, he must have sat and watched that thing.
It was Pedro Serrano-esque.
It was. So he gets smoked his next time at bat. And it's a controversy because I think there were 2 strikes on him. There was a runner on first already. They were chasing 2 runs. Why would we want to hit this guy?
Ego, baby, ego.
Yeah. And look, and it could have even been like, hey, look, we're gonna send a message. We're gonna buzz him, right? Yep. We're gonna throw in hard, back him off the plate, and you miss a little bit and you hit him. So either way, I think it was intentional.
Oh, there's no question. Whoever says it's not intentional has no idea what they're talking about. You watch his arm pat, the ball never. It was a beeline for his body, straight laser line. Not like came off the side of his fingers. Right. It went right at him.
I just think that it's almost like people. I think it's funny that people feel like they have to come out and defend him like he wasn't trying to. Like, I wanted to be like, bravo, He did
Yeah,
it on purpose. Like,
I
yeah,
agree.
he intended it. And I agree with the guy for
That's how
doing
we
it.
police the game, right?
Yep. But you and I are in the minority with that now, Kevin. And the minority, because can a guy celebrate a home run? You don't like him pimping the home run, get him out.
Yeah.
Well, no
Okay.
crap.
No, fine.
No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will. Okay.
All right.
So I've made a Mike. I've made a producer. Where's our producer? Oh, we got rid of them. Anyway, the production decision here to not keep this too long. Why don't we have a part one and a part two of this,
Okay.
right? And let's just talk part one. Let's talk hitters, maybe even a part three, because maybe we can talk about defense, base running, and that kind of thing, right? Because they're all important.
Sure.
So, Michael, I am a 52-year-old man. I've got, we'll say I've traded my two daughters in, which, by the way, I would never do. But I've traded them in for two boys,
Okay.
age 12 and 15. So let's say the 15-year-old's already in high school baseball. My 12-year-old is now going to go from big diamond or small diamond to big diamond. And it's time. Daddy's instructions gone as far as it's going to go. And I'm looking for a program. What should I look for? Give me your, top bullet points of what I should look for to get my child to be a better hitter.
Okay, good question. So the first thing is you got to qualify what it is exactly you're looking for. Now we're gonna use a little fake hypothetical avatar here. Most people, at least that I have experienced over the years, and I think you've experienced the same, Kevin. Most players at the younger ages want to play. The kids that we get, the kids are looking for programs. Baseball is their top sport, and they want to play as long as they want to play in college. They want to play high school, varsity, etc. They want to play for the Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, etc. And there is a pathway to that. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody can go and play an MLB, right? But if done right, everyone can play in college. If you start proper development at the right age, and that age is 12, 13 or younger, even 14. You absolutely can play college. This is a sport. I've always said it. You can learn how to get good at this sport, right? That's why anyone watching the playoffs now saw the guy that picked Houston up, put him on his shoulders, Jose Altuve. Guy's like 5'5.5". Okay, that's he excels, right? So anyway, you can learn how to be good at this game, but the number one thing you have to understand is that the off season is where development is. Yeah, the trash can. The off season is where the development happens. So one of the things that you want to make sure that when you're looking for, a development program, because every club team is going to tell you they develop. Development does not happen in the season. Development is not about how many states that you go to in the spring and summer. Oh, we go to Florida, we go to this. And we do that too. We do that for the older kids, and there's a reason for that. Okay. But you don't need to do that at 12, 13 years old. You don't need to be playing 50 games. That is not development. In fact, if you don't know the proper mechanical movements, those 50, 60 games, they're doing you a disservice. They're making you worse because they're further reinforcing those bad mechanical movements and building them deeper into muscle memory. So an off-season program, Kevin, a development program, number one, make sure that the focus is on the off season. You can go play games anywhere. Anyone will take your money, give you a fancy uniform, and let you go play baseball games. It's not hard. You can do that. There's thousands upon thousands of teams join, but the off season is what should separate one program to the next. And and I'd be happy to go into what that looks like, but that should be the focus.
So, all right. So we pick your program. Mostly because you're handsome, that.
Naturally.
Of course. So what's a best practices program? 3 times a week, twice a week, individual lesson, hitting, and maybe talk about hitting groups. People might not know what that is. Film. What are you doing? How are we getting my child to, maybe struck out more than they should? Like, how are you getting this 12 or 13-year-old lad to be better?
Good question. So it should be approximately at least 3 hours a week. Okay. And so for the younger ages now, 13 and up, 13, and then so once they get the big time,
this is a 13-year-old person. Yeah.
So they're 3 days a week. They'll train 3 days a week. Now, even the 12s will still train 3 hours, but they'll do 2 90-minute sessions instead of, right? Because they have a lot more going on typically. So 13 and up, You should be going in 3 times a
13,
week.
you're at least in 8th grade, probably, right?
13, you're in
8th grade.
7th, yeah, 7th
Yeah,
grade,
okay.
typically, right? So you're in middle school,
Mhm.
and middle school baseball. I'll have to do a whole other episode on that, but don't get me started on that. But
Mhm.
the off season, 3 days a week, you should
Yep.
be starting in late November, just early December at the latest. And obviously working right up to the season. But another thing that's really important, not just that how many days a week you're training and working out, but the quality of the training. Every session should have you or your kid in a small group training atmosphere. So what I mean by that, 4 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids tops per coach training together. So if you look at a hitting group, right? So,
Mhm.
you go to college and you play in the pros and, you take PP, you're going to be in groups, right? Similar, but why it's so important is, and not just my opinion, but my experience. And, this spring we had our 80th player out of 8 graduating teams sign on to play college baseball. So we're doing something right there. And one of the things I really believe is a small group instruction. So you get 3-4 kids together per coach.
Mhm.
It's better than even one-on-one training, Kevin, because number one, taking 70 swings, your kid walks in for a private lesson and they're just going to swing and swing and swing. It's almost endless in their mind when they walk in, right? And so how many of those are they really focusing on? How many are they really focusing on? It's so easy for them to almost take a day off. I've had kids come in for private lessons and in a 35-minute session, the first 25 minutes is getting them just back to where we left off last time, right?
Yep.
In a small group, it's different because they want every kid in that group, they want the attaboy from the coach, right?
Yep.
They don't want to look like the one who's not doing well. They tend to focus better.
And it's
Also,
live film because you can see what if you're pointing out
yes,
something for player A, player C is like, oh, I do that too.
that's the second reason, right? The visual learning. You're learning from someone else as you're watching. The third one, which should have been the first one, is as they started to say, 70 swings in a row. That's not conducive to real baseball. Taking 10, 12 swings and then taking a break and then digesting how you did, watching the kid next to you, in front of you, planning what you're going to do differently the next time, all those things. It's so much better. And that is a real effective way to train. And making sure that, you have an idea, you have a clear vision of where what you're working on that day,
Mhm.
how it, where that fits in on your overall development in the skill like hitting or whatever it is, and what you're going to next. Like once we get this down, we're going to be working on X, right? So
Mhm.
they have that goal of, oh, cool, we get to work on that when I get this down. So I want to work on this. That's a real true development program. The other thing that's really important is that there's a strength training element to that, especially starting at 13. Okay.
Mhm.
It's where someone like Kevin would come in. And of course, the whole body movement, posture, et cetera, is sort of, it should be involved in all of it. But yeah, so just to start off at a very basic level, you should have that. If you don't have that, you're not in a real development program. If you're in a program that they have team practices and the teams come in and practice as a team, and there's the coach and the assistant coach, there's 8 bazillion programs like that you could find if you want.
So, Mike, you heard Mike say strength and conditioning, and I'd actually like to dial that back a couple steps, right? And I think Mike just includes that in the whole overall picture of what I do compared to what other people do.
Yes. Yeah.
So when he says that, he's not mistaken. But if we have Junior at 13 years old, here's a case study that is probably 150% true. Junior has no shoulder blade control. Take his shirt off, we'll see 2 shoulder blades, probably at different heights, some winging, a lot of upper trap engagement. He has zero ability to do a perfectly executed squat. His first movement's going to be his knees over his toes, all bad. So that means when he goes in and takes an athletic stance, whether it's a field, pitch, or hit, he's compromised. So no matter what Mike is going to teach Junior, although his brain may say, hey, I really want this to happen, his body's saying, you don't have the tools yet. So when we talk about player development, if that doesn't have a movement development first or in conjunction with what's happening, it's going to be a fail. And I don't care if you are the Jesus Christ of baseball instructors. If you're teaching a kid to load and his back foot wobbles, his knee goes over his toe, and you don't know how to correct that, he's never going to be a good hitter because that movement has to be corrected, right? We can't be an athlete unless we can master the basic moves of functionality of a human, right? And this is what I think puts what we do above and apart from, not to blow our own horn, but the people that we have worked together, we have seen amazing increases in almost immediately in their numbers, whether that's exit velo, pitch velocity, speed, whatever it is, because I'm correcting the movement and I'm making them functionally prepared to play baseball. And your average kid does not have those tools, especially the kid, and this is where studies have shown where the kid stops playing baseball, and that is that just post-pubescent individual. Kid who's 5'2" in Little League, 5'7" in Babe Ruth, might have been the big fish in the little pond, now can't walk and chew gum, now, getting aches and pains that they never had, not performing well. It all has, they didn't forget how to hit. They didn't
Right.
they didn't go from 12 to 13 and forget everything that they learned. They just can't do it. They don't have the mind-body control. And unless a program is working on mind-body control, it's a fail. They're not going to get better.
Absolutely. And I don't know where this came from, but I always used to do like neuromuscular communication,
Mhm.
right? So where the brain, knows how the body's supposed to move, moves the way it's supposed to move. I think a good way to look at this, Kevin, right, is that so I'm there, I'm going to be able to tell them how they're supposed to move, what the movement should look like. And Kevin's going to make sure that their body's equipped to when they want to make that move, that they can perform it. And that's really important to understand. And I can tell you that, you mentioned it, that when they go to the big field, they grow, they didn't forget how to hit. Of course they didn't, but they may have not even really known how to hit when they were 12 or 11. They could have, because there's lots that you can get away with at those younger stages when you're facing 55 mile an hour, top 60 mile an hour fastballs. And, you're using these glorified wiffle ball bats to like drop 13. So, and I think that's where those bats even came from, Kevin, because we didn't have those when we were kids. I think somewhere along the line, we said, oh, you know what? We want more kids playing the sport.
I mean, I think I definitely hit my first home run in Little League with a wood bat. I mean, we weren't even, because metal was first coming out. It was not first coming out, but it was expensive, right? Like I had a hand-me-down bat, right?
Yep. It's the same thing. And I think somewhere we just said, you know what? It takes too long to teach them, or we don't have the people to know how to teach them. Let's just give them lighter bats. Let's make everyone be able to have some more success. And so anyway, point is that when you start, the older you get, the better competition, right? The pool starts shrinking and the competition gets better. And that's where it's that much more important that you really understand movement, you understand the movements of the game, of the particular skill or discipline, hitting, even fielding, right? Fielding mechanics are really important and how to field properly. So, but the combination of those two is real true development. That's real true development. It's training your body specific to the sport, and training your body specific to being an athlete, and then understanding the movements of that sport.
All right, so let's make a little bit of a turn. So I've had some when I had my last PT practice, some financial people I used to do some business with that actually invented a word, econologistics, which was
Okay.
I forget, but they actually went through the whole process of getting in the dictionary and like there's
Really?
there's actually a way to get it in, right?
Interesting.
So the reason I bring that up, at least, and there's tons in the pitching when we get to that, but Mike, there seems to be a lot of invented words in when it comes to hitting or baseball development, like
Spinal
barrel
hygiene.
dump, back
Okay. Yeah.
stretch, and you probably know more than, but there seems to be, can you maybe touch on your few favorite words and maybe define them for us morons playing at home that don't know what barrel dump is, or barrel depth? That's a good one. Depth
Yes.
of my barrel. Like,
yes.
my barrel's connected to my bat. I didn't know it had depth. I mean, I guess if it's 2 2/3 circumference. So tell me what all these words mean.
So that's an interesting. So barrel depth, what they're talking about with barrel depth is the depth in the zone, right? And so it's
My
actually
barrel doesn't have depth.
no, the barrel does not have depth.
Okay,
It has
good.
density.
Or I guess the word it would have to be something with your swing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the swing. And so, everyone knows I typically have my handy dandy drumstick here, but I seem to have misplaced it. So, well, I'll just use my arm. So
Okay.
barrel depth is if this is the bat and the
Mhm.
ball's down here and I
Mhm.
start my swing, and there's many people who in sort of old school think you should be making a straight line to the ball because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So that makes my swing quicker, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, maybe. If you have hand-eye coordination, like say like a Mookie Betts, right, who just has ridiculous barrel rate, right? But would it not be better to make sure that I get on the line with the plane of the pitch first? So now I've got, I might be a little late, but I'm catching it back here.
You're
It
gonna
might be a
catch
little
everything in its path. Like a lawnmower keeps spinning, it's gonna cut everything in the path of that lawnmower.
That's right. And so that's what barrel depth is
So
to
that's
get deep.
barrel depth. Okay,
That's
now
barrel
I
depth,
understand
yes.
that. That's a good explanation because that's used, and I guarantee parents are like, "Ugh." Either one, confusion,
Yep.
or two, oh, he really knows what he's talking about because he's invented words. But
Well,
it's really like you had said before, many shows ago, when you broke down hitting with math, right? Like we threw a ball at 94 miles an hour, you're gonna swing at this thing, or you won't even hit it.
that's right.
That's how these machines measure exit velo. How fast is the bat? Like when they can instantaneously tell you that home run went 402 feet. No one's out there with a laser guided, right? It's just an equation, right?
It's an equation.
Equation.
Yep.
So I think we did one, an equation of hitting. So, all right, barrel depth. Okay. So a lot of this stems from a new hitting thing that has very controversial and come up, and that is HLP, or the high level pattern, which looks, when the person, teacher man who does it, I've yet to see him actually complete a swing without falling over. Now I know the guy's old,
Yeah.
but he's talking about hitting one-legged,
Right.
turning to feel a back stretch, dumping the barrel. So maybe go through some of those vocabulary so we can decipher if this guy's full of poop or what he's talking about is good. What's happening?
So
Help us.
he's one that, we could and have done almost full episodes on, because, he's a guy that there's lots of things that he says that are not untrue,
Right.
not incorrect, but it's almost like I don't even know how to describe it. Like almost like he hears things that he's picking up from other people and goes, yeah, that's exactly it. But then he goes to try to imply it to how what he's teaching. And it's like, none of it makes sense. The whole one-legged hitting is just
I saw a TikTok video before he came on. He was talking about the MLB Network, Tommy, A-Rod, all these guys talking about swinging down to the ball.
Yep.
And he's like, no, what they do is, because they're on one leg, is that they swing, and automatically that it just looks so. I just don't see
what I'm saying.
I don't see people doing that in the
you don't.
0.00 seconds. You have to decide whether to swing.
He talks about pivoting the forearm or the wrist
Yeah,
or something stupid, right?
Yeah.
So, but there's a perfect example of what I mean by what I said earlier. Like he says something. So he's not wrong. Those guys don't swing down to the ball. They don't. You pull up, look, anybody watching this, go pull up a slow-mo video of Alex Rodriguez or Albert Pujols. They don't swing down to the ball. Is the barrel traveling down? Yes, they're not bringing their hands down to the ball. They're not, even if that's what they're thinking.
So what is that? So I'm a parent. I'm like, all right, I got this guy telling me that with one leg, you're telling me they don't do this. You guys are you're talking similar. You're not talking, right? So how do I decipher to get my 13-year-old to stop striking out?
Exactly. So this is where it comes down to. It all should make sense. It should all make sense. And you don't need to be a geometry whiz or a math whiz, because I'm certainly not, right? But it makes sense, right? So I'll give an real quick example of why you want your barrel to be in the zone a long time. If you take two people at the opposite ends of a football field on the same hash mark,
Mhm.
and they both start sprinting to the field, their chances of contact are 100%. It's just a matter of what side of the 50, where they are, because one's going to be faster. Now, if you take that same scenario, both guys opposite ends of the field, same hash mark, this guy takes off, the guy on the other end starts running in a big giant circle. Look what that does to your chances of contact. Now they might not make contact at all. That's why you want to be able to swing on the path of the ball. Ted Williams talked about this back in, when did he write that book? In the 70s, The Science of Hitting, right? Maybe
So
earlier.
how do we get, and here's another vocabulary word.
Well, but just to not to cut
Okay.
you off, but now trying to take that and start talking about swinging on one leg and the head tilting up in the air and pivoting your forearm, nonsense. You hold the bat here, right? The load position is the same for almost every hitter for a reason. It's the top of the strike zone. It's close to the body. It's behind the shoulder, which is behind the hip. So when the hip turns, it pulls the hands, right? So you turn, right? The barrel is going to lower as you turn. You're on path of the ball and you finish. Forget about the one leg and all this other crap, right? It should make sense. And it does make sense when you
All
hear
right,
it explained.
here's another vocabulary word or two. How do we get, what's the best way to get someone on plane?
Okay.
Right?
On
'Cause
playing
you
with the
hear,
pitch.
you hear that, right?
Yeah.
This is the way, they're on plane. Is it
Okay.
one-legged? Is it just turning your body? Like
Just
what
turn your body. Just turn your body.
that's what I say too. It's
Turn
gonna
your
be
body. Athletic position. Look at this. Almost every athletic movement comes from the same athletic position. And again, this isn't Mike Ferry's opinion. This isn't Kevin McGovern's opinion. You just go watch, right? So when a hitter is ready, now stances are snowflakes, right? You see 1,000 different MLB players, 1,000 different hitters, you see 1,000 different stances. The load positions, they're all the same. I told you why the hands are where they are. Now look at the lower half. Their hips are back, their butts down, their knees are over the center of their feet. Their feet are wide enough the shoulders can comfortably fit inside the feet. If you took a picture of the chest down from that athlete, Kevin, and you looked at a linebacker pre-snap, a running back pre-snap, you looked at a tennis player getting ready to return a serve. If you look at a basketball player playing defense, a hockey player, skating backwards, right? It's all gonna be the same position. It's an athletic position. So you start from that position and we turn. And why do we turn? Because as Kevin has taught us time and time again, our bodies move proximal to distal. So we move from the spine outward. So we turn. And by the way, that's how you get the big muscles to actually generate the speed of the bat. And the hands just become the steering wheel, which I'm not going to go into it, but I'll bring it up because it's important you hear this if you watch national baseball. Well, he's someone who likes to get his arms extended. Yeah, you extend through the ball. Who doesn't want to extend their arms? Who hasn't? Who's gone up there and gone like this? I haven't seen it. But anyway.
So before we close, Mike did steal a little bit of my thunder. And when we're talking about hitting any movement, if you're not talking about the movement and it being initiated at the core, what they're telling you is sequentially wrong to begin with. Even if they're talking about ground forces, okay? A lot of people talk about the ground. Nowhere am I walking on it. If I go on a daily walk, automatically I see the ground, boom, fly up in the air, okay? Because what the ground, it's actually a ground reaction force, and the reaction is my body pressing into the ground as it started from my core. So it's
Right.
maybe a slightly morbid example, but it works. We're talking about anything lifting, moving, athleticism. You have to think of a person who has no arms and no legs. They have prosthetic arms and legs. How do they move? Does the prosthetic wrist move first? Or does some movement at the core translate down that prosthetic to make the arm move? When the guy with no legs is doing a squat, and many people with prosthetics can do a squat, is his foot moving first by some magical connection? No. Force is applied through the prosthesis, starting from the core, down through the prosthetic leg, and then back up. So like Mike talked about, rotating from the core, that's how you have to think. Pitching, hitting, tennis, golf, boxing, mixed martial arts, swimming, it doesn't matter. We have brain, I need to move, spinal cord, here's the movement, out to peripheral nerves. That is the sequence of movement. That is proven science. Nothing do we start at finger first, and it just doesn't work that way. So anyone who's trying to teach you that is actually teaching you the opposite of actual proven science.
And I should just say that as much sense as you just made that sound, as Kevin made that sound, your mind would be blown with how many people do not teach that. And
Not
they
only
won't
don't
teach
teach
it.
it, not only don't teach it, but will argue that that's wrong, which is just, again, go back to, the late great Superman, Christopher Reeve. Okay. He had a C3 or C4 fracture. Okay. How did he move? He didn't.
Right.
Okay. He didn't. Why? Because the power source, his ability to move, was broken. Where? At the spinal cord. And that's where all movement starts. And that's it. Proximal to distal, it is a law.
That's
So,
it.
Michael, how do people, well, first of all, when you see this on our YouTube channel, the Prove It Live YouTube channel and our proveitlive.com site, please like and subscribe. That helps us out. If you need to contact the show, you can email us at info@proveitlive.com. You can get a hold of me through there, probably Mike through there too. We'll pass it
Yep.
on. But Mike, what else? Any other way to contact
Just
you?
my email, Mike Frary, Freire at the farm, BPI, B as in Bravo, P as in Paul, I as in India.
Perfect.
That's probably the best way. Yeah. I
All right.
don't check my social media that much.
I like it. So that's it. We will be back shortly with part 2, which we'll be talking about pitchers. And we'll go from there. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next episode.
Adios.